Welcome to our video on participatory data analysis with youth. In this video, we will show you some of what we learned during the Spaces and Places research project, a qualitative participatory research project that explores how communities can build better civic and cultural engagement with youth. The project offered a good opportunity to reflect on how we involve youth in rigorous data analysis. This video is designed to start a conversation about how to do participatory data analysis in ways that are culturally and contextually relevant. Spaces and Places has taken place in rural and remote communities in Atlantic Canada, as well as urban spaces in Ontario. Data collection involved young people aged 12 to 18, making photographs of their community and reflecting on these images in interviews. We also filmed a few hours of a day in each youth's life, capturing the way they interacted with the spaces and places in their community. Additional interviews were conducted with participants focused on compilations of their video footage. We then used thematic analysis to interpret the data collected, and we included the youth participants themselves in this process. In this video, we're going to share with you the 6 steps we followed to analyze the data. 1. Familiarizing everyone with the data. 2. Generating codes. 3. Identifying themes. 4. Identifying relationships between codes and themes. 5. Maintaining rigor through intercoder agreement. And 6. Producing the final report. The manual that accompanies this video, available on our website, explains thematic analysis and the process we used in this study in more detail. To start the analysis off, research staff and participants needed to become familiar with the data. While research staff could read through all the transcripts of individual interviews, we needed a more youth-friendly way of bringing the data together for participants. We did this by using analog Facebook pages and conducting focus group interviews. Out of the photos they took, we asked youth to paste their top 2 to 4 photos on their Facebook pages. They then shared with the rest of the group why they selected these photos. Youth continued to share their experiences of their community through the discussion elicited in the focus group. Each youth also shared a 2-minute video clip with the rest of the participants, explaining why this clip was important to them. Once youth were familiar with each other's experiences of the community, we all worked together to create initial codes. We used various activities to achieve this. For example, because we were interested in spaces and places that facilitate youth connection to their community, we used a lot of mapping exercises. Youth broke off into smaller groups and mapped out aspects of their community like culture, recreation, and safety. They then came back together in the larger group and discussed their maps. Similarly, because we were interested in how community resources support young people to be happy and healthy, we also used body mapping exercises to relate the contents of the community maps back to the youth themselves. This allowed the youth to talk about the ways in which contextual community resources support them. We used other spontaneous but short activities to keep the energy up and to spark additional ideas for codes. We tangled participants up with licorice laces in an activity that encouraged them to talk about what they do to manage tricky situations. We used chocolate gold coins together with the question, if you had $1 million, what would you spend it on in your community? To encourage reflection on what resources youth felt they needed in their community. Through all the activities, youth posted ideas, questions, and thoughts on their Facebook pages using Post-it notes. This allowed us to capture questions and thoughts on the go. While youth were working on the code-generating activities, members of the research team were gathering lists of all the words and comments that repeated themselves or that stood out, and in particular, those that related to people, places, and activities. These words, or codes, were written on index cards. These code cards were then used in a theme-generating card game. Code cards were shuffled and dealt to youth participants, who then selected the codes that they thought were most important and placed them on a table. As more and more codes were added to the table, we asked youth to start grouping them together in ways that showed connections between the words. As code cards were added to the groups, the youth debated which cards or codes should be added to particular groups and why. These discussions helped us understand why certain codes were grouped together and what overarching theme each grouping reflected. Emerging themes were written on Post-it notes and added to the groups of cards. We returned to the code card game a lot over the course of the data analysis weekend. We then pasted groups of codes onto large sheets of paper and started looking at the ways that codes and themes were related to each other. Interesting insights about the relationships between themes emerged when youth wondered about the positioning of a code card and why it belonged in one category and not another. Relationships also emerged from the additional stories youth shared as they regrouped and connected codes and themes. Working with youth in these ways ensured that we maintained rigor in the data analysis and enabled inter-rater agreement on the codes, themes, and their meanings, as developed and interpreted by youth participants. Once we had agreement on the key themes emerging from the data, youth, supported by the research team, began transforming ideas from the weekend into the design of a mural. The mural is intended to communicate the themes that the youth felt were most important to them as a group. Watch the Eskasoni Spaces and Places mural video to see the end result.